Jury selection for the trial of disgraced Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes has kicked off in California. She built a multi-billion-dollar business on the promise of simplifying the way diseases are diagnosed. But it was too good to be true, and now she faces accusations of fraud that could land her in federal prison. Paolo Montecillo tells us more about her rise and fall.
She was once Silicon Valley's rising star, dubbed by some as the next Steve Jobs. Elizabeth Holmes even dressed the part. The Theranos founder became a billionaire by promising to transform the healthcare industry.
Over the last 11 years, we've reinvented the traditional laboratory infrastructure with a mission to make early diagnosis and early detection a reality in the context of our healthcare system and healthcare systems throughout the world.
To achieve this, she had a simple pitch that with one drop of blood, her company would diagnose hundreds of health issues early. She won the support of high-profile investors like Rupert Murdoch and Walmart's Walton family, helping Theranos reach a valuation of $9 billion in 2014.
Instead of requiring tubes coming from your arm, make it possible to do the tests on tiny droplet of blood that could be taken from a finger.
But according to whistleblowers, it was all a lie. In 2015, former Theranos employees told the Wall Street Journal the technology Holmes was selling did not exist. The revelations led to government sanctions, and the company was eventually forced to close in 2018. That year, prosecutors charged Holmes and former Theranos president Sunny Balwani with 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The Department of Justice says Holmes and Balwani falsely told investors that Theranos had the capability to provide cheap and accurate blood test results. In truth, it was struggling to develop the technology to deliver what it promised, a fact that officials hid from the public. Despite the challenges the company faced, they still told potential backers it was on track to make $1 billion a year by 2015.
Holmes and Balwani knew that the analyzer had accuracy and reliability problems, performed a limited number of tests, was slower than some competing devices, and in some respect could not compete with existing, more conventional machines.
Holmes and Balwani are being tried separately. If found guilty, they both face millions of dollars in fines and up to 20 years in prison. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by Heather Hansen in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's a trial attorney and the CEO of Advocate to Win. Welcome to the program, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, we heard there seems to be such a compelling case against Elizabeth Holmes, who really looked to revolutionize the blood testing business with her various inventions. A lot of people say this ended up being one of the biggest frauds in Silicon Valley history. How strong of a case do you think prosecutors have here?
Listen, Oscar, they have a very strong case. In general, federal prosecutors put together a very strong case. In 2018, the cases that went to trial, 83% of them resulted in jail time for the defendants. So this is an especially strong case. There's lots of evidence against her. There's lots of witnesses against her. But as we saw this weekend, her defense is going to be very interesting and potentially the only one that might win.
Yes, let's talk about one major aspect of the defense, one that recently came to light. So Elizabeth Holmes is now alleging that the former COO of Theranos, who was also her ex-boyfriend, abused her essentially and bullied her into defrauding the company's investors. How strong of an argument is that? Could that potentially work in her favor?
I mean, it could. One of the things the prosecutors have to prove is that she intended to defraud investors, and that is why she did what she did. This defense will allow her to say, I didn't do it to defraud investors. I did it because I was afraid of Sonny, her boyfriend, that I was afraid of his abuse. I was afraid of the way that he would treat me. Now, it's going to really come down to a couple things. There will be psychological experts on both sides. The prosecution will say that this is not at all true and not at all established established in her records, in her examination. The defense, of course, their expert will say it is true. And I do believe that ultimately, in order to prevail with this defense, Oscar, she will have to take the stand and explain to this jury how and why this man had so much control.
Now, we know this trial has been delayed several times, partly due to the pandemic, but now jury selection is underway. Can you just take us through that process? How important is jury selection in a trial like this?
It is extremely important. You know, arguably, Elizabeth Holmes has already convinced one jury, her jury of investors. She convinced a group of people to give her hundreds of millions of dollars. She now needs to convince a different jury, and the lawyers on both sides are going to look for jurors who can see things through the perspective they want them to see them. For the prosecution, that's going to be the perspective of the patients who Elizabeth Holmes' lies actually hurt. For Elizabeth Holmes attorneys, they're looking for someone who can see things through the perspective of Elizabeth, who they will argue was bullied and intimidated and abused by her boyfriend. The process is meant to take 2 days. That's what the judge is saying. That seems quick to me, but they have weeded out some people with the questionnaire. They have weeded out some people who know a lot about this case, others who can't take the time off of work. This is going to be about a 3-month trial. And now today and tomorrow, it's questioning these jurors as to whether they can be fair and whether any of these aspects of the case will influence their ability to be fair.
And as we know, there has been so much publicity surrounding Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos that, as you say, it could further delay the start of this trial. Heather Hansen, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much again for joining us on the program.